And he's like,
I got this now. I'm gonna win this game in a second.
And he goes,
Oh! What? Oh!
Wow.
and that's about what happened next.
Hey, listen!
Think about, I know anybody that's been through this, you definitely can relate. It's shocking to you. It's almost unbelievable to you when it's happening to you. You know it's what's happening, but it even causes you to question yourself. So this person has such an advantage because it's hard to believe that they would be doing what they're doing. It's hard for people to believe that. So when you come and you say these things finally, I'm not going to remain quiet about this. I'm going to start exposing this. I'm going to start standing up for myself because they picked the wrong person. You thought I was just going to stay weak and keep believing you that I'm this thing and I'm that thing that I didn't think I was, but you keep saying it and I gave you the benefit of the doubt. And I tried to be self-reflective and you used that against me. You used my empathy and my kindness against me. And you exploited me. When you come and try to say that to people, you sound cuckoo. You sound like you're losing it because you're already kind of losing it. It's the perfect slide under the radar behavior. And the only time these people finally eventually get outed is when they do it enough times to enough people that it's like, okay, well, this can't just really just keep being the case with you. So every single person that ever has the misfortune of loving them is going to be treated this way eventually. It almost sounds like compassion. It almost sounds like the hero. It almost sounds like the good guy. That's why this person is so dangerous for your mental health. This is not the bad guy that's out here being obnoxiously loud and evil and yelling and screaming and putting his hands on you and cheating on you and just being a menace. This is the bad guy parading around, fooling everyone around them like they're the good guy. This is their story every single time. Every time they have a falling out with someone, they did everything to help this person. They tried so hard, but just this person's just impossible. This person just didn't appreciate them. This person just was selfish. I'm going to give you an example of how it started out so subtly that no one would have regarded this as a huge deal. I didn't even regard it as a huge deal. I regarded it as kind of in bad taste and a bit disingenuous. It just felt dishonest. Not lying. You're not necessarily lying, but you're doing a form of dishonesty. And so this is where it started. And I then noticed that he repeatedly did things this way. This is just going to be like an example of the first time I saw it. And then I will later on get to examples of how this grew into something much more serious with much worse implications and with longer lasting effects and greater things at stake for me and my well-being, and just how it grew to a level that was absolutely not acceptable and is qualified as just malicious harm to another person. To be more specific, Christmas 2020, I watched this happen, or I overheard it because he was on the phone with one of his friends on speakerphone in the garage. I was fluttering around doing some cleanup. His friend asked him,
What did you get for Christmas?
Okay, simple question. He did his laugh. So he went, and then when she was like, what does that mean? Like started to respond, he busted out laughing. Like it's like a funny inside joke or something. And so obviously she did what people always do next. And she was like,
You didn't get anything?
and he repeated it again. He went, and like busted out laughing, And so she's just like, okay. And then they moved on to a different topic. Now, not a big deal, right? Maybe. But like also maybe not. Because the truth of the matter was, I did get him gifts for Christmas that year. I got him gifts when I barely had anything left. I bought him gifts that year. That year he actually did not get me any gifts, which it wasn't a big deal. I didn't care. But it was the fact that he didn't answer the question. And then when she guessed the wrong thing, which was that he didn't get any gifts, but he did get gifts. I didn't get any gifts. He let her think that. He let that be. He didn't confirm nor deny it. But obviously that is what conclusion she was coming to. And that was an implied meaning of, your girlfriend did not get you any gifts for Christmas. Again, putting him in the light of like, he's the good guy. He's the guy that's always doing so many good things and he never gets anything in return. But he never actually said that, right? But he let it be implied. It's like, let her believe that. And then fast forward to a future date. Here's another example of it. So with the same person. So this is how this is what it looks like, planting the seeds. Okay. So there was another time where he was on the phone with the same friend. I overheard this conversation as well. He talks on speakerphone. So like I can hear, you know. I had gone out of the room. I had gone downstairs to heat him up a plate of food because the day before we had had a big get together for his family, my family. I had gotten this huge dinner plan. I cooked prime rib. I cooked everything. I cooked so much food, cooked wonderfully. I got so many compliments. I went to go heat up this plate of food, and when I was coming back, he was talking on the phone, and I overheard this part of the conversation. So she had said something that her husband had gotten for her. And then my ex repeated, I would get that for Alyssa as well. He said my name. I heard it. And I was like, oh, what are you talking about me? And he's like, I would get that for Alyssa as well. And he said, if I were being fed, right? So this is a joke. A joke. It was one of his favorites, okay? Because he always gave me a hard time about cooking. I cooked a lot. I cooked a lot for him. I cooked for him all the time. Not all the time, but like apparently that's what he expected. Although while continuously stating that isn't what he expected. I almost always kept groceries stocked in the house, frozen, canned, and fresh. All of us were fully of capable age to heat up something when needed, and I paid for the groceries by myself a steep majority of the time. That was about $200 a week, and I made it a point several times to let him know what's mine is yours, while also making it a point to buy things that I saw he bought for himself. But however, how much I was doing it was also not enough because he was constantly making jabs at me about it and saying that I don't cook. And sometimes he was doing it very angrily and rudely when no one was around. But when people were around, he liked to joke about it and be like,
oh, if I was getting fed, maybe, some people know, weight of a man's heart is through their stomach.
whatever the hell he said. It was just like,
Ha ha ha, I'm so funny. But really, I'm tearing her down. Lo and behold, she cooks multiple times a week for me. And I know I almost never cook.
he almost never cooked ever while we were together. How he was able to hurt me like very easily with my need for external validation. He could pick up in me that I wanted that so bad. So he used that against me. He constantly had that advantage over me because he knew how to just never give it to me purposefully. And he knew he figured out, obviously, because he picked away at all of them. He tried to chip away at all of them and just tear me completely down with all the best fitted tools. Like, he was able to pick up on the things that he could see I tried so hard at. He could see were very important to me to give to him and be appreciated for. I could tell that I was eager to want to be recognized for. So being seen as a good woman is something that I've had a pressure on me. It's like I feel like I have to be that as a partner, and I try so hard. I go above and beyond. He saw that I was sensitive about that and that I was, trying a lot. I wanted that. I wanted to be that. And so he made sure to never, ever let me feel like I was doing a good job of that. So he made sure to pick me apart for that and criticize me and act like I was never doing good enough in that arena, and I was doing a lot less than I actually was even doing. He was like just lying, basically, just gaslighting me and acting like I don't even try. I tried. Like, it's just so crazy because if anybody knows me, the things he would say about me they're just outlandish. Like, yo, I'm not proud of it, but I know what I am. I know my flaws, and I know that I people please the shit out of situations, my relationships. I know I do. I'm actually ashamed of it. I don't want to do it anymore, but I am certain that I do it. Like, you can't sit there and tell me I didn't care about what you wanted. You can't sit there and tell me I didn't try to please you. I don't do anything for you. Like, literally, I abandon myself to obsess with what you want and constantly trying to figure out what I can do for you and what I can give to you. So you are such a... He really tried. He really tried to make me think that. And so this was one of his favorite jokes. He would say it all the time. All the time. I had cried about it. I had complained about it. I had begged him to stop. I had tried to do better. I had tried to make sure I cook every night so that he couldn't say it. He would still say it. I would try to... Oh my gosh. I broke myself in half trying to satisfy in this area. And I couldn't. And I was spending hours in the kitchen every night, then having to clean up for hours. I was wasting hours of my life every day to cater to him, and he was carrying on and speaking on as though it wasn't even occurring. And that became just infuriating, draining, and exhausting after a while. And I did pull back eventually. But this was far before that. When he said this,
If I were being fed.
And like thinks it's funny, mind you, that I had just marched up the stairs with his warmed up plate that I made and warmed up for him and got for him, handed to him in this moment of food that I had spent almost the entire day cooking for his entire family, my entire family, and there's a third family that's related through like being significant others. That family too. All of them. Like, you're sitting here trashing on me when the conversation wasn't even, it didn't even need to be about me. You literally took a moment to bring me into it. You purposefully are trying to bring me up just to bring me down to this other person over something that I'm literally handing to you right now. You're lying right now. I'd never seen anything like it. I had never seen anything like it. Like later when it came up and I told him about it, like how that was passive aggressive. That's what I'm talking about. That's the gaslighting. That's the slandering my name, blah, blah, blah. He's like,
it wasn't even about you. That was about what friend got from her husband. That wasn't even about you.
I said,
You literally said my name.
and he's like, oh.
Okay, just because I said your name doesn't mean it's about you.
And I'm like, you brought me into it, and then you used it as a as a moment to insert an insult about me, a false one at that. And he just is like, no, it's not. You're just being way too sensitive about that. That wasn't even about you. Not everything's about you. You seem like you want to make everything about me. Because you're right, that conversation wasn't about me, and it didn't need to be about me, so I'm not sure why it was about me. So that's what I'm talking about. He would do that. Those little ones, he would do almost daily. All the time I was hearing him. Got way worse than that. Way, way worse than that. I have never in my life, in all of my years, experienced when someone is telling me something to my face, saying it as fact, that is blatantly untrue. And even though I'm offering up evidence of, well, no, I did this, and this is what happened, and this is what I said, but yesterday I just did this, and you said this, and even amidst that, they are to my face telling me a story about what is going on between us that is not happening, that is not the truth. To me, the person that is here experiencing it with them, that they should very well know as well, if they are living in any sense of reality, knows that's not what's happening. So why would you say that to me? I mean, I've had instances where people like tell a lie behind your back. Yeah, and that was going on too. But never where someone is telling the lie to me. It's all my efforts to be like, but no, this shows that that's not true. This shows that that's not true. And this shows that that's not true. And what do you mean? And like just going nearly insane, trying to show this person who I thought just must be very damaged or confused or lost, because it couldn't possibly be that they're trying to manipulate me and know that this is not true, but they are trying to gaslight me into questioning my own sense of reality. Never in a million years did I think that that was a real thing that I would ever experience with somebody. How do you expect something like that? And then do you know how lost and alone you feel? They start telling these lies and making these jokes in front of other people in their life and their family, their friends, right in front of you and them. And you try to defend yourself and you try to say, that's not true. That's not what I do. That's not what I don't do. And they sit there and they condescendingly laugh at you. And then they have this look between them and the other person, and they're like, okay. And you're like, in your head, you're going, how do I make it clear that I'm the one that's not lying? I did everything. Then you start compiling evidence and you start trying to show it to people. And then these people don't want to look at it. People won't read it. People won't give you the time. They won't take the time to even hear you. You'll see people look right through you while you tell them what is happening to you. You'll see them, kind of brush it off, but try to display a level of sympathy and say things like, I'm really sorry that you guys are experiencing this. I really hope that you guys can work it out. I really do. And you're just like, are you hearing me? Do you hear me? I can prove this. I have proof. I have evidence. Like, I have everything. It's like you're talking to a bunch of walls that aren't listening to you. While you're going through it, you just can't believe it. And you're just like, you're still thinking so naively. You're thinking like a logical person. So you're just like, well, everyone can see what's happening here. I mean, it's going to be obvious, right? And then it's like, as time goes on and you start getting these reactions you never expected, and you start to realize that people are not believing you. The horror that sets in when that happens. When you realize that you are literally not being believed and you are being looked at like this person that is so far from who you are, and that you've shown absolutely no indication that you are that way. And everything that you try to do after that point, after they've already went behind your back and said whatever they've said about you, every time you try to defend yourself after that, you just look crazier and crazier. People are already turned against you. I really liked their validation in the beginning, the way they were praising me, the way they saw every little thing I did and everything I could do, everything I walked on. In the end, I walked on eggshells and nails. But in the beginning, I walked on water. I floated. I was a queen on a pedestal. There was actually a moment in the beginning of us talking and getting to know each other. One of his siblings had come over, and he made a comment. Well, he put his arm around me, and he was being all lovey-dovey, and he was like,
This is why I love this woman. This is why, because I can't imagine anything that Alyssa and I would ever not see eye to eye on, or that we would ever disagree on.
We're like in our 30s. I mean, we've had enough relationships, you would think, with other people by then to understand that that's not possible. That's not the way it is with almost anyone. I'm not exaggerating. He said,
I can't think of anything we would ever disagree upon. I don't think we're ever going to have a problem like that.
ever? Ever? And every fiber in my being was screaming,
That's not obviously true.
that's a red flag. That means like you don't have a proper expectation or outlook about what realistic relationships are about and what they look like and what can happen within them and what is going to inevitably happen, what a healthy relationship looks like amidst arguing and conflicts and not seeing eye to eye, and how you work through that. Now, in that moment, his sibling immediately called it out and was like,
Well, that's not possible. I mean, yes, you are. Yes, you're gonna have disagreements. What do you mean?
again, talk about naive. I, again, in that moment, thought that was adorable. Everything he did was just adorable. The fact that he said that was just like so complimentary to me. I was like, oh, we will, but like, oh, I love you. And I just felt so special. The fact that he had such a high regard for me, high expectations of my moral value and that way it aligned with his, and just had such a high positive belief in me. I didn't feel like afraid I couldn't live up to that standard, or like I didn't see that as a red flag, but like looking back, that was such a red flag, because that's exactly the process that goes on in the brain of these types of people. And it's the reason that they're able to justify when they first get into a relationship and they see a person that they do actually like and think is of a high caliber, and they just think they're great. What they do is they value them to a standard that is impossible. They actually put them on a pedestal and they think that they are perfect. They actually think that you are perfect, that you are almost even greater than them, and that you can do no wrong. So you are a goddess in their eyes. And that's why they're able to love bomb you and be so supportive and be so kind and giving, and just they're the most wonderful person. Now that I look back, I realize it was really this weird flaunting of me. Every time I would come over, he had a new group of friends that he was having over to show me to or something. Because it was just every time I would come over, and it wouldn't be about us hanging out. It would be more about who was coming over today, that he could be like, this is Alyssa. He could proudly show that he's dating somebody new. If you don't know what type of person this is already, in hindsight I see this, but at the time, I kind of thought it was interestingly different, nothing I'd ever experienced before, but I took it as a compliment. I thought it was about me. I thought, wow, they're so proud to show me off. They're so proud to be with me. And the whole time, he's just singing my praises to the mountaintops. You know, he's like,
Alyssa always knows how to say thank you. Alyssa is she's so appreciative. She's so kind. We get along about everything. Alyssa loves this. Alyssa loves that. Alyssa's so in tune to me. Alyssa's such a great person. Alyssa's amazing.
it's like, it was everything I had ever wanted to hear. And I was so starved for someone to pay that type of attention to me and to be that complimentary of me, that I just there was never any hope. I was sold. I was looking at this person with such affection. And it wasn't just that. I mean, that's how he pulled me in. Throughout that process, I saw qualities in him that I ascribed to him based on the fact that he would do this. I saw that he was caring. I saw that he was expressive. I saw that he was not afraid to show his feelings. I saw that he was communicative. I saw that he valued me not as just like a prize to win. Sometimes I feel like a lot of people have their partner as, they don't see them as like a friend or a person. They see them as like, well, I need a partner.
And this is how I get my like sexual needs fulfilled, and this is how I get like my life goals checked off, and like really, but like every day I'm complaining about this person, and like deep down I actually hate men. Or
Deep down, I actually hate women. I have a lot of really rude things to say about them, and I actually think she's really annoying, and I demean her constantly, and I never include her, and I never consider her feelings, but I love her, and I married her, and I need her, because she serves a purpose.
That's what I had gotten from my understanding of my experience with men prior. And to see someone who treated me like a human being and treated me like I was something special and wanted to hear what I had to say and didn't judge me. I almost can't say that with a straight face at this time now, because all this person did was judge me. Like, if he did anything, he judged me. I mean, just judging from the beginning to the end, never stopped judging me. But I thought he was very understanding and very empathetic and very kind. He's bringing, every friend he ever had out of the woodwork, and every coworker and every person that he knew in his life was coming through to have this introduction. And I saw him being very happy and interactive and funny and lighthearted, just having a great time with all these people that he was connected with, that I thought,
wow, this person has so many friends and is obviously such a lovable person, and he's so fun to be around, and he's hilarious.
And I love the way that he looks at the world, and he doesn't take himself too seriously, and he can just joke about things. I really loved the way he treated people. I loved the way he talked about his sisters. I loved it. I loved it. Very early on, he expressed a lot of his beliefs about relationships, about, how he did not agree with like cheating or going outside of your relationship. And that was just like the worst thing you could do to someone. And coming from a relationship in the past where I had been repeatedly cheated on and I could never trust that person, that was so refreshing and calming to hear. I thought, I am so safe here with this man. I'll never have to worry about that. And that was everything I had to worry about before. Constantly. He expressed how he felt about physical, domestic violence, and how disgusting that you never ever put your hands on someone, not just a woman, but like no one should be doing that. And that's my stance as well. Very strongly feel that way. I would not put my hands on my partner, and he expressed that as well. And I was just like, I am hooked. You had me at no cheating, and you pulled me in further with no domestic violence. Like I'm here. I'm sold. I came from such a depleted place that even the amount of healing that I had done in the time since my previous relationship from those terrible things, that's all I needed. I didn't think of all the other things that could happen in a relationship. I was so unprepared for what was about to occur. I was so unprepared. And to my defense, I don't think a lot of people would be prepared for quite the wild ride that I experienced. I mean, that wasn't anything normal. I don't think anyone would be prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for how emotional abuse could make somebody feel. I had only lived from a place of physical abuse. And that seemed that was terrible. And obviously very violent and not very, very obvious. Emotional abuse never crossed my mind. How sinister and how hiding in plain sight that can take place, and how it can just mess with your entire sense of what's going on. How it can just really tear you down from wherever you stand, down to almost nothing. It really can shatter you. Everything was good at this time. I mean, everything was bright, everything was beautiful, everything was fun. Every day was just like I always thought life should be. And I almost couldn't believe it was my life, because every time I would think, what's missing today? Something's missing. And I would realize what's missing is the trauma and the pain and the struggle. And it almost felt like I was like forgetting to do something. Like I was forgetting to hem and haw over life struggles because I didn't feel them anymore. I had the entire day and the entire life ahead of me to be happy, content, peaceful, giving, laughing myself development and my growth was already, I had already been on a trajectory. Like I'd picked myself up from that previous relationship, and I had gotten myself back on my own feet. I had gotten my own apartment. I was working my job, and I was excelling in my field, and everything was going good. I hadn't tried a real relationship again. So to be with someone and to realize that this could be the person that I've wanted all my life and that I was almost afraid didn't exist. I found him. And every day was brighter because he was in it. And all I wanted to do was spend the rest of my life thanking him for that. Thanking him for being such a good man. I wrote so many things about how great of a man he was and how much I appreciated what he added to my life by just showing me kindness. That's why it was so upsetting when I found out. I'm not going to say he's a bad man, because who am I to say that about him? He has some really not morally correct ways of going about interacting with people. He does things that are bad for other people, and he hurts other people, so I can say that. He also does a lot of good things. He showed me he was not the man that I thought he was eventually. But at this time, and even after he showed it to me a lot, he showed me a lot of reasons to question this persona I had placed upon him and thought was him. But I remained loyal to my belief about him, and I chose to want to believe the best of him so very long into our relationship. After I had seen many, many signs of this not being true, I continued to say, no, I know he's a good man. I know he's a good man, and he deserves my grace. He deserves my patience in this process. And he if anyone ever deserved it, he deserves me to stick around and see him through this. I really thought this was just something he was going through. The real him started to peek its ugly head out in really odd ways that I was flabbergasted by. I was like,
What is going on? Why did you just do that? Why are you acting like this? Why did you say that? Whoa.
The absolute best example of this, the very first shocking thing that happened, where I was just like, whoa, speechless, completely speechless, and so confused and really wary. Like, whoa. We were about 5 months in, I want to say about 5 months into our relationship at this point, and he was meeting my brother for the first time, my younger brother. And so I was very excited, and we were over at his house, and we were having the best time ever. We were playing the game Never Have I Ever, and somebody said, never have I ever done something, okay? It was a adult act, okay, that when you're two consenting adults or more, you do, okay? Whatever. Not a super uncommon one, I guess. Not your mainstream maybe, but not too far off the beaten path. Something you might try in your young crazy days, whatever. I'm not going to say what it was because it's too much information, okay? I have to maintain some privacy. The way the game works is they say never have ever. If you have done that, you have to put a finger down. Well, I had done that. I don't even think it really qualified, but whatever. Me, always.
I have to be honest. I have to be fully transparent and make sure I'm dedicated to truth.
So I wanted to tell the truth. So I said, okay, I think I'm going to say this qualifies. He immediately was stuck on that. And he went, oh, what the heck? I started to feel like maybe I had made a mistake by saying and or admitting that, because it was over 10 years ago. It really maybe wasn't even all the way what that was. I was just trying to play the game. I was coming from a place of his past is his past. He could have told me anything, and I wouldn't judge him for it. I mean, to a reasonable extent. I'm not gonna get jealous about your past experiences. that happened over 10 years ago. Like, so I thought for sure this was okay to share. I mean, why would I be ashamed of that? But he seemed visibly shocked, and he has this way where he was actually upset about it. He was very upset. He was actually extremely filled with rage and jealousy in that moment, I now know, and thought I was revealing this to, I don't know, like slight him or like poke at him or like flaunt it to him or something. I don't know what goes through the mind, but like, the way he reacted, that is what I have to assume. Now knowing what I know about these types of people, they think everything is that. They literally think you're trying to take jabs at them when you're doing none of the sort. When you're doing nothing at all. They think you're playing some sadistic game with them, trying to get one over on them. And you know why they think that all the time? It's because that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Everything is a projection constantly. Like, you wonder, like, what is this attitude about? Like, why are you putting that upon me? I'm not trying to fool you or rile you up or do anything to you. We're playing a game. Like, what do you mean? That's what I would have said if I knew what the hell was going on, but I didn't. But I only know this from like later going through this situation 1,000 of times and finding out information about this because I needed to make sense of it. And what I found is that it's always a projection. They literally think that you're doing what they would do. And what they are trying to do constantly is rile you up and make a jab at you and get one over on you and make you the butt of a joke and make a fool of you, humiliate you, and win this invisible battle that they're only having with you in their mind. So they think you're doing that too, and you're not. So you're very confused. So he took that as like a personal attack. I don't know how, but he felt very offended. I got nervous because I was like,
Why is he making such a big deal of this?
in my head, because he was laughing it off and he was making comments. He was almost like excessively laughing about it, to a point where it's like, you know, when somebody's like laughing hysterically, like almost like they're a crazy person, and you're like, are you okay? It was like a show. It was like an act, and he was just like really laughing it up with trying to get my brother like to laugh, and he was like
damn, she can't even wear some sexy underwear for me, but out here in these streets doing da 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 da.
And I was like,
Huh?
Because just that previous week, we had an incident where we were in his bedroom and he saw my underwear. And it was a boy short type of underwear. I mean, it wasn't like full-on grand pan or anything, but like that's what he was calling it. And he was like teasing me about it. But he had never been malicious ever. So I obviously took this as a complete playful banter, and I was not a sensitive person, and I certainly wasn't feeling like I was in a space where I was unsafe to joke around. Like, I thought it was hilarious, and I was laughing my ass off, and he was turning on the thong song, like making fun of my underwear and like being like, yeah, some granny panties or whatever. I thought it was hilarious. I was making fun of myself too. I mean, I haven't been in a relationship in a long time. Like, I'm not concerned about my underwear. Like, I haven't thought about that in a long time. It's not something that I was like in my like years leading up to meeting him. I was single and I was being a mother, and I was killing it. You know, I was out here raising my children, and I didn't have a lot of extra money. First of all, I wasn't concerned about what my underwear looked like. It was my underwear. Like, and it hadn't crossed my mind. And then like when he was like making the jokes about it, I thought, yeah, I probably should like maybe do some upgrades in that department. And literally the very next couple of days, I got rid of all my underwear that wasn't as new as maybe it should be, and I got a bunch of really like sexy looking underwear, right? Immediately made that change. Picked up on it, made that change, right? Never again, even like to this day, to the fact that like that stood out to me so much, and I considered him so much when he said that even to this day, that's just been my norm from that point on. I wanted to show him that he was so valued and that he deserved the world, and any request was not too much, and I was going to do everything I could to be a great woman for him. And I stood true to that from the beginning until I got so beaten down that it became impossible to continue enduring that. Because that situation, like, it didn't stand out to me as being a mean situation, because I couldn't yet see him as like a malicious person. I thought, like, he's just joking. Like, I'm not going to be that sensitive. And I took it like a champ. I didn't go into this relationship and have this sensitivity about everything he said and everything, and think he was just meaning these horrible things every time he spoke, and just misrepresenting him and using my past trauma to think all these horrible things that he was meaning. No, like, no. I was very accepting of him in the beginning. I was not bothered by a single thing he did. I constantly gave him the benefit of the doubt. Trust him wholeheartedly. I swear this man could have done almost anything that made him look compromising, and I would have believed anything that came out of his mouth. I was so trusting of him. That's why it's like, I remember these things. I remember the way I entered this relationship. I remember the person that I was and that I gave to him before he did all his damage. His damage that he tried to say was my past trauma that I'm making up in my head. No, you, sir, put this in my head where it did not exist previously. I knew I mattered to him. I knew I had his heart. I knew I could trust him. I knew he was a good man. So it wasn't until he gave me good reason to doubt him over and 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 over again that I started to become sensitive to the things he would say. Because by that time, the things he would say were not innocent. That's just how he tried to play it off to everybody around us. He was pointedly picking at me and jabbing at me and trying to rise out of me with things that he had collected about me that he knew could push my buttons, but nobody else knew about that. So he could say something really obscure to everybody else. It didn't really seem like much. But he knew that I knew exactly what he was getting at and exactly what he was trying to do. And he knew it would upset me. And then he would just do it time and time and time and time and time again. And then I would look like the sensitive one who's misreading him, misunderstanding him. He didn't mean it like that. Why would your mind go to that? Because that's exactly what he means. And he knows exactly what he's doing. Back to never have I ever. So hearing that underwear comment come up again, I was thinking to myself, like, that's kind of a weird thing to say, because, like, one, that seems like a jokey joke. Like, I'm not an idiot. I can tell when something is a joke, and when something is like a underhanded jab. Nobody knew that he was strategically just tearing me down at every freaking turn, slowly, to where I didn't even know fully that it was really happening like that until I was so far into it. I'm going to try to stay on target here so I can just get through this story. I made that comment about the underwear again, and I was like, what the heck? And this is while I'm wearing the new underwear I've purchased, and I've already shown him. So, like, he knows that. So I was a little confused as to why he said that again. And he said it in a way that I was like, maybe that wasn't a joke. And maybe he's like, really, there's something more here. I knew that this was a little more than a joke this time. It was a side of him I had never seen. So I was like, is he bothered, or am I imagining things? He seems really bothered, but he's laughing, and he's like got this, like, this is the, let me just show you, this is what they do.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Like that. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, when you know it, you know it. I know, like, when you see me do that, you're gonna be like, yes. If you have ever seen someone act like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They act like you just made, like, a very calculated attack on them, and you tried to, like, get away with it. But, like, they're like,
oh no, I see you.
And you're just like,
But you see me what? Like,
and so me being very uncomfortable with this situation, I started over-explaining myself, explaining how it was over 10 years ago, and how maybe what I'm talking about doesn't actually really qualify for that. It's actually not really that big of a deal. I mean, like, maybe I shouldn't have put my finger, maybe I'll just put my finger back up. That was now looking back, that was the worst thing I could have done. You don't want to show your weakness to people like this. That's what they're going to thrive on. So, like, I was just making myself seem more guilty in his eyes, in his mind. I was over-explaining because I'm a liar, and I'm a fraud, and I'm terrible hussy of a woman out here just wanting to sleep with everybody, and not him. I had no clue. This is all hindsight information, okay? That I'm giving you now from what I have been through and now fully understand. This was all in a complete illusion in his mind. This is how he took somebody who was 100% on his side and so in love with him and projected onto me this false persona of what was actually inside of him and made me some person that I'm not, while I was completely dumbfounded and confused the entire time and hurt and didn't know what I was doing wrong. I guess he got embarrassed somehow by this, or what? I don't know fully, but I'm guessing like embarrassment maybe caused him to clarify the rules. And he's like,
what is this? Like, what are you supposed to? You just say anything that like you haven't done, and
then my brother's like,
yeah, that's the point of the game. You say things that you haven't done that you think maybe some of the other people here would have done, so that you can knock one of their fingers down. That's the point of the game.
and so he's like,
oh, okay. Like, okay, I could have been winning this whole time.
and he's like,
I got this now. I'm gonna win this game in a second.
and he goes,
Never have I ever been cheated on repeatedly
No.
and stayed with the person.
Oh! What?
Wow.
and that's about what happened next. I couldn't believe that I heard what I heard. I was so shocked that those words just came out of his mouth in succession as a complete formed sentence that he meant to say and meant exactly what it sounds like. My brother audibly gasped. He went, "Oh!" It was so shocking and so awkward and so unexpected. And if it's not like all coming together, my previous relationship, like I've shared before, was 12 years off and on with a person who physically harmed me and also cheated on me multiple times. And when I was in my very much less personally developed state of not having much self-confidence, not having much self-worth, not really advocating for myself. I'm not going to go too far into it, but they cheated on me repeatedly. And that was something that I had recently shared with this person in a very vulnerable, private, intimate moment when they were asking me about my past and what happened in that relationship and reassuring me that I could trust them and that I could feel safe and tell them and that they wouldn't judge me. And even after I told them, he reassured me that that's never going to happen to me again and that he's so sorry that I went through that. And he was so loving about it. He was so supportive. Again, I felt like I was so lucky to have found this person. I wanted to give him everything I had forever. And I was so genuinely in love with him. And so genuinely just giving my whole self to him. And I wanted nothing more than to make him happy and just enjoy the rest of our lives together. Like, I really, really felt that way. And when he said these words to me during a game that was lighthearted and fun for no reason that I could say was warranted, in front of my brother, who he had no idea whether or not, like at that point, whether or not my brother knew about that. To like intentionally put me in a position to not only insult me and hit me over the head with my own past trauma in front of another person and try to humiliate me to win a game. How does one's brain go from what I'm describing was happening before that to computing an action such as that? You can't. I nearly just like dissociated from the moment because I was like, I can't, like my brain was like, cannot compute. I couldn't take it in. It seemed unreasonable and unimaginable. And I know, like, people might say I'm dramatic and like I'm blowing it out of proportion, but that is a very calculated, intentional, malicious cruelty. Like, that was very blatant. Like, that, it was alarming and it was scary when it continued to come into realization for me. And that was the first time I'd ever seen him. I mean, now looking back, there were little hints of, you're being a little rude, you're being a little mean. Always like kind of swept under the rug. That was just his humor. That was just, he was having a little bad mood for a moment. You know, never anything so overt and open like that. That was the first time he was ever directly very mean to me. But it would not be the last, by a long shot. My brother was so uncomfortable in that moment that he turned around and said, I'm going to go to the restroom. And he walked inside and left us out there in that unbelievably awkward moment where I didn't know what to say. It was actually so traumatizing in that moment, or so shocking in that moment, that I did, I think, dissociate, because I actually cannot find any information in my brain as to what was then said after that. It's gone. It's just, it's blank. I don't know how I reacted after that. I believe I asked, why did you say that? And what did you mean by that? And I don't think I ever got a very clear answer in that moment. And I think just due to complete discomfort, I just like let us move on. When he started acting like normal again, I just kind of like let that happen and like didn't want to really touch it. But that was the first sign of it. So that is what I'm referring to. That is what I'm talking about. Those are the type of jabs that this person will conveniently disguise as jokes that other people may not really fully understand how deep they run in the moment. And he can kind of like play it off as like you're being sensitive and overreacting and can't take a joke. But they're not jokes at all, by any means. There's just such a depth to the pain that he inflicted. And I really want to get that message across, because that's the crux of my pain. There's something just very sinister and pointed in what he did that makes it more than just a case of two people not being compatible and needing to separate. That makes it much more than a case of stay out of it if you witness it. Some of my most painful moments of struggle and heartache, like the type that imprints on you deeply. It's so heavily that you almost never forget it. You almost never forget that ache, that loss feeling, that pain, that feeling of being just terrified, uncomfortable every day, crawling out of your own skin. I mean, some of these things that he used against me at very chosen times were my most painful traumas, my most painful moments of my life, my most shameful, the things that I was so hurt by and so ashamed of, had such a hard time admitting, had such a hard time accepting, such as going back to a man after he cheated on me and laid his hands on me over and over, out of a sense of responsibility and out of wanting my kids to have a family and out of, so many things that, like, I'm sure many of us are familiar by now with victim and abuse cycles the way it goes. People tend to stay in it a while. That's the way they typically pan out. When something is typical, it happens a lot, maybe like look into that and educate yourself, on what the reason is for that, because it sounds like many human beings behave this way. It sounds like it might be related to human nature. It sounds like it might be related to how the brain works, things like that. It's just, I don't understand why people sometimes just don't have an open mind to, want to understand these things. We're taught to shame ourselves, and I felt intense shame over that fact that I did that. I was very ashamed of it after the fact. While I was in it, I didn't realize. I was surviving. It wasn't until far out of it, and I'm interacting with other people out in the world that just have no way to relate to me, where I start to get in situations where I feel intense judgment on me, where I start to feel intense shame and guilt for doing that, where I start to blame myself for my abuse. Painful times in my life. Painful. So painful. But the way he utilized those things, that at some point he had to know. He had to know that those were the most painful traumas of my entire life. The way he did that was just unforgettable. I cannot imagine how somebody could do that to somebody that they care even a little bit about. How could you do that to somebody? I would never do that to someone. Imagine hearing somebody's most traumatic moment of their life, and they're crying. They're visibly moved by that information. They're visibly emotional by that information. They're sharing it with you privately. Imagine the next time you are mad at that person, pulling that out of your back pocket and hurling it at them to intentionally hurt their feelings. Oh, your dad abused you? Yeah, I see why now. Like something like that. It's like mind blow. Who does that? Who does that? And gets away with it. And gets away with continuing to say they didn't do anything wrong. And that your direct reactions, so long after the fact, were not caused by them. They then took those reactions. They went around smearing my name, made everyone view me differently. Then after they were purposefully hurting me and knocking me down, to where there were outcomes of that treatment. The outcomes of that treatment were loss of appetite, loss of productivity, severe weight loss because of loss of appetite, increased level of depression and anxiety because I already had these pre-existing conditions diagnosed in my past, which I had not had any terrible experiences with for over 10 years at this point. Over 10 years I had not had an episode of this. And they're through the roof in this relationship when this all started to happen. Unable to sleep. How? If you took one look at me, if anyone took a single look at me during that time, how you could not see that there was something very wrong with me. And they obviously did think there was something very wrong with me, but you know what they did instead of seeing the very obvious thing that was happening right in front of everyone? With his influence, of course, everyone started to make new rumors about me. I can't think of a lot of things that are more calculated and more, I can't think of a word, but like, I want to say evil, but I know that might be just going to a little too far, but then to just purposefully use internal information about a person that you gained by being their friend, getting their trust, using that to harm them intentionally over a very long period of time, harm them by ruining their reputation subtly to everyone around them, isolating them. Then find out, at the end of the day, people don't even want to come out of their rooms because of this terrible energy and this tension that their family member has facilitated and sewn into the mix. and is taking zero accountability for. And therefore, I'm having to leave. And I'm being looked upon as the problem. I just find that entire summary of events to be a massive injustice directed at another human being. And it didn't stop there. Like the story that you saw previewed in the beginning of the episode. It's recent. There's been so much. It's like if somebody does you wrong, and it's obvious that they've done you wrong, and you're waiting, you're like, okay, well, if you just apologize and we can work this out, you just stop doing that and like we can move forward. I love you, like let's do that. And they can't do that. And they're like, hell no, F you. And they continue to do it. And on top of that, they try to make you responsible for their bad actions while they don't apologize. They continue to hurt you. And then they hurt you more on top of that because you're trying to ask them to apologize. It's like you didn't think you already had the extreme, unbelievable audacity with everything you've already done? You're doing more? You have the audacity to... All right. Now that I got that out, let's go ahead and shift the narrative a little bit over to something that we have some power in and have some control over. Where do we get in life if we continuously wait for other people to change, blame all of our problems on other people, hold resentment in our heart, refuse to forgive? That's the easy way, right? I mean, let's be honest, that's the easy way out. It's so much easier if you are the altruistic, perfect angel and this person is all bad, the whole problem. You don't need to change anything. This person just came out of nowhere and just did everything wrong to you, right? That's the easy way. But we all know that's not how life works. And that if you go through life doing that, then you are going to continuously be under the belief system of life happens to you, things happen to you, people can do things to you, and you have no control over your own life. You have no control over your outcome. And I personally do not want to subscribe to that belief. And I don't find that to be correct. I think that there's a lot of control you can have over your own life and your own outcomes. You just have to make smarter decisions. You have to learn from what you've been through. And throughout this terrible, horrible experience on one end, there were a lot of really great things I got out of it. And I haven't been able to say that right away from when it first happened. But I truly did. I truly got a lot out of it. And here's one thing. When I was so confused why he just kept doing these things, tearing our relationship apart, I had reached out to a therapist who ended up giving me a piece of advice that stuck with me permanently. And it's something that I reference a lot now. It's like, I was giving her the spiel, the rundown, long email on everything that was happening, everything he was saying, everything he was doing to me, how it was making me feel, all of that, you know? So, you know, I'm long-winded. I was just like, I keep telling him how he's hurting me, and he just keeps doing it. He won't stop. I don't know why he just keeps doing it, you know? And I was telling her the type of things he was saying and like how much it was hurting me, why it was hurting me. And she said something back that really was a light bulb moment for me. You know, light bulb moment. So those moments in your life ever so often when something makes that light bulb turn on and then it's illuminated, and then from that point forward it's so impactful for you that you're like, how did I get through life before when not knowing that without this light bulb illuminated? It's so important. I'm so happy I found this, and this is one of those things for me, so I want to share. It's now so monumental to my belief system. So I said to her, how do I get him to stop doing this to me? And she's replied back with this. She said, I'm sorry your boyfriend is not being considerate of your feelings, and that is hurting you. The truth is, you can't get him to stop. I read that and I was like, no, help me. I was so upset. I was like, no, that's not the right answer. I almost stopped reading right then. Okay, but it went on. And it says, we all can only hope that when we tell somebody they are hurting us, That will mean something to them. And they will want to make some changes to stop doing that. But if they don't, that is not something we can control. Again, I was like, no, get this crap out of here. But I read on. That is your boyfriend's journey, and he has to want to take it. Yeah. Something you do have control over is the way that you respond to his actions. Now, some of you are going to say, this is like, duh. But something about the way she put it this time in this email really stood out to me and really stuck with me. So I'm just bear with me, okay? She says, your task is not to figure out why your boyfriend keeps pressing all of your hot buttons. Instead, shift your focus to discovering why you have those hot buttons in the first place. And why are they available to be pushed? Like some accountability. She goes, the only reason he can push them is because they exist. Resolve and remove your hot buttons. Then they won't be there for him to press in the first place. I was like, how rude and also freaking genius at the same time. If that is not one of the most genius concepts I've ever heard in my life. So simple, but so right, so clear. And from that moment on, I started trying. It took me a while to get good at it, especially while I was still in that house with him, experiencing all of that. It was really hard, but I started to work on removing my hot buttons. And guess what your hot buttons are tied to? Your self-limiting beliefs that are in your subconscious, ongoing on the journey. So it's all tied together. A hot button is just a trigger. It's just another word for it. And I didn't realize that he was triggering me. He was triggering me. He was figuring out all my triggers and he was pushing them over and over and over and over again. On purpose. And so all I had to do was remove my triggers. Deprogram them. Stop being triggered by that. So I was able to resolve one of them, a big one, while I was in the house, in that relationship. And I was able to do this and test it out. I will never forget the day. So we're having the conversation, everything's going fine. And like clockwork, he at some point inserts his deflection of throwing some type of jab at me that has nothing to do with what we're discussing. Okay? So I think this one was something about my ex being my family. He used to love to say that. He used to love to say, he knew that I was really abused and hurt by that relationship, and that I had no contact with that person. I had cut that off. This was a terrorizing situation for me. I was physically harmed, all of that. And he knew how I felt about that. So he loved to, at certain times, try to throw at me that I loved that person so much. That's why I stayed with them for 12 years and refer to him as my real family. You can just deal with your real family. And just so childish and so hurtful and so unnecessary, because I literally did not have anything going on with that person. That was a terrible time of my life. And just so wrong to do that to somebody. That's what he liked to do a lot, though, because that one would get me real upset. That was a real pain point. I remember when he tried to do that one day, and I was over it. And I just looked at him, and I went, I started laughing like he does. I laughed at him the way he does. I sat there and I laughed. And I said, good one. That's a good one. I was like, that used to really upset me, but now it just looks silly. Just looked very silly saying that. And I started just cracking up laughing at him like that. And he went like this. He went, okay. And then he just moved on. And I felt great. I felt fine. I didn't have to spend the rest of that day just so hurt and just in pain and the fight blowing up. I mean, he continued to do his thing. He just pulled out a new trigger after that one didn't work. So, I mean, it was doomed for us. But the good thing is, that was so freeing for me. So freeing. when I realized the power that I had in that situation. It was actually my power. And that's something that I want to help you get. If you haven't quite harnessed that power yet within yourself, you can. And we're going to get to that soon. It's coming up, okay? Stay with me. One of the most painful things that he did towards me had to do with the fact that I was not heard, and he would make sure that I was never heard. I would try so hard to talk to him for hours, and he would dismiss me and deflect and then not retain the information and then just say the same things over and over again. You know, I kept wanting him to do the classes that I'm always talking about. He told me for a long time he was going to do those with me, that he would do it to save our relationship, and he was lying. He was never going to do it. All the way up to the point where when I moved out, the parameters around me moving out were that we were just going to take some time away and we were going to work on our relationship while not living together. Which I should have known. Like, if you can't find the time to dedicate to us while I'm here in the house, then should have been doubtful that he was going to then all of a sudden be able to do that while I'm not. Basically, he just played me for a fool the entire time, telling me over and over, like, we're going to talk, and like that he was going to listen to me, and he just would never hear me. Then I would spend my time writing these things out because I thought, okay, well, if he can't find the time, you know, we just can't get on the same page, maybe. And then we just have like triggers, we're triggering each other. So maybe if I write it, I wrote so many letters, y'all. I just wrote letter after letter after letter. And I wasted so much of my time and my energy in just desperately. I was passionate about this because I truly thought I was in love with that person who I now know does not exist. But I loved him. I didn't give up until I felt I had exhausted everything I had inside of me. And he continuously, even after I moved out, he would, like, I'll send something where I thoroughly explain something in an email or in a text message, and then he'll bring up later in another conversation something that was very obviously explained or said in that email just to demonstrate that he just blows them off. He did the ultimate, like, you mean nothing to me. You don't matter. You are worthless. That's what his communication to me was, silently. Every time. Yet continued to hurl unfounded accusations at me. Continued to stick to his false story that I was demonstrating to him in plain English several times why he was wrong and why that was not appropriate. So I gave this person ample amount of time to hear me, to take me seriously, and to treat me like a human being, to have any level of decency or compassion for me, like he swore he had. And he failed to do so even to the smallest degree, ever. So now I'm going to tell people that will listen. And at any time, he could have just heard me out, given me just that tiny bit of respect, to just treat me like a human. And he wouldn't. And he left it all unresolved, and he went on his campaign to try to ruin my name. He accused me of things. He tried to take it way too far, even when I was not even dealing with him anymore. He's just been an incredibly rude, heartless, mean person all around. He's not who he seems. I don't need him to listen anymore. I don't care about if he ever hears another word that comes out of my mouth. But I deserved the right to be heard. So I want to thank everyone that has watched this podcast for me. You're healing my heart by helping me to remember that I am worth it and that I am worth listening to, and that it is important what I have to say and my feelings do matter. How much on the outside in the conscious mind I continued to say, I don't stand for this. This isn't what I want. I want a good man. I want someone who's honest and true, has integrity, would never treat someone that they say they love in these ways, would never do these things. I still ended up with the one who would do those things, who absolutely did do those things, and I stayed there much longer than I was supposed to. I say I believed in him fully, but rewind back to a few episodes back that I just did, and the topic was self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, that's by far my most important episode, in my opinion. It's based on the fact that our self-limiting beliefs that are deeply programmed into our mind from childhood formed our attachment style. And what we know now from neuroscience, it's been proven, is that our subconscious runs 95% of our daily thoughts, and it's just running the show. And so whatever's in that subconscious is what is creating your reality. Your thoughts, your beliefs, they have to match your reality. You form it from your subconscious, but once it's already in there, you can't just think, I want a purple elephant, and it comes to be. It's in your subconscious, and it's a deeply embedded belief that is running on autopilot no matter what your conscious mind wants to think. The only way to change that is to reprogram your subconscious mind, okay? So obviously, I say I believed in him fully, but what went on to happen shows that I didn't believe in someone that I needed to believe in a lot more than that, and that's myself. I still had these self-limiting beliefs operating that caused that type of a person to be attracted to me to be attracted to that type of person. It took me a long time to realize that a lot of my fear of getting into new relationships and a lot of my fear of intimacy based on the whole thought process of I don't want to get too close because it's going to hurt when it has to be over. If they hurt me, that's too much pain to go through. It's not worth it. It's a fallacy because I wasn't realizing that I was overstaying my welcome with people, and I was letting them overstay their welcome with me. There are some people that we're never meant to get that far with. And what I had the problem of doing was when I chose somebody, I was in it for the long haul, unconditional. And relationships like that, they need to be conditional in the beginning. You don't unconditionally love them. There absolutely must be conditions. You don't just take abuse and mistreatment unconditionally and keep loving them. This was my very damaging misconception that I acquired incorrectly, always having forgiveness. You need to forgive everyone. You need to take the higher road. You need to be loving and caring and be the good-hearted person. If someone is rude to you, be nice to them because you are not a bad person. If someone is a bad person to you, that doesn't matter. That has nothing to do with you. You continue to be good. And those are all amazing lessons, but it took me to being an adult to understand the full dynamics of that. I didn't even get it. I thought that meant be a doormat. I thought I had to take everything. I thought I had to be everyone's little punching bag. I had to be sweet and I had to be kind, and I couldn't speak up for myself. I couldn't have a voice. I had to be liked. I had to be serving. And I had to accept when people hurt me and continue to be kind to them and continue to be good. And I had to be true all through and through. And I couldn't have anger. I couldn't have resentment. I couldn't have pain because I had to forgive. But guess what? I had a lot of that. I had a lot of pain. And thinking like that led me to put up with people that would do exactly those things to me. And it's taken me so long to learn. That's the reason that you don't have to be so afraid of love, is because as soon as you see that it's not love, you just go away from them. You don't hold on and let them drag you down to hell and beat every last bit of hope out of you, emotionally, figuratively, or physically. So after this relationship, I've learned that I have a lot of work to do, because not finishing my healing process before I met this person, no matter how wonderful and amazing he looked to me and how healthy it seemed that he was going to be that perfect addition to my healing path, and that he was going to be someone I could trust my heart with. You shouldn't be thinking about who you can trust your heart with until you trust your heart with yourself. Because then it doesn't matter what someone tries to do to your heart, because it's not going to work. Because you are taking care of your heart. I am a whole person right here. I don't need to wait and hope for a whole nother person to guard my heart and do the right thing with it. Because I am fully capable right here housing my heart myself. And that is what we need to learn as individuals, so that these types of things cannot break us. Don't worry about if you can believe in someone else. First, worry about if you can believe in yourself. And that is a big part of what the healing from betrayal is going to encompass. Getting back to self and building up self, because that is what you have lost in this betrayal.